Welcome back to the Flying with the Flock podcast, the best place to get all of your Eagles and NFL related news. I'm your host, Matt, and we are still 2 weeks out from the NFL draft. So, realistically, it's a really dry time for the NFL as a whole. I mean, we're past like the major free agency point, but we're not quite at the draft yet. Well, we're going to see teams shape up, especially with who they're going to take in the first round, who is going to help them immediately, most likely. So, yeah, it's an interesting time. A lot of different NFL content creators, myself included. I'm not sure how long this episode is going to be. It could be anywhere between 15 to 20 this week, and that's because I've rounded up all the good NFL news, but we're scraping, not bottom of the barrel here, but we're scraping for anything that we can get. In this episode, we're going to talk about how some players' stocks are rising, weirdly enough, in the NFL draft. Uh, the Trey Hendrickson situation we'll talk about a little bit more in depth because I've been avoiding it a little bit, and we've gotten more news in the past 2 weeks about it, so it feels like now's the best time to talk about it when he could get traded in around 2 weeks before the draft, or leading up to the draft. Then we'll also go over some of the players that have been announced to come to the Eagles practice facility for a private workout, that being prospects in the draft. And looking at it right now, looking at the sheet that we have, you can definitely see a theme of where they're most likely going to go in the first round and second round. So with all that out of the way, before we jump into it, I would like to ask you guys to leave a like and subscribe down below. It would be much appreciated. Leave a comment as well. That always helps, and it helps boost me in the algorithm as well. So, with all that malarkey out of the way, let's jump right into the first topic. That being how Jackson Dart and Jalen Milroe's draft stock have skyrocketed over the last few days. I find this very weird. I know a lot of different draft analysts have Jackson Dart possibly going in the first round or going in the second round. Personally cannot see that. He's not as talented as a Cam Ward or a Shedeur Sanders to help push him into that first round. Jalen Milroe's interesting. He reminds me of a way more raw version of Jalen Hurts before Jalen came into the league. Jalen still had the arm. I'm not sure, or Jalen Hurts had. Okay, let's just go with the last names. Hurts had more of an arm, whereas Milroe has almost more agility than Hurts did at this point in his career. And being able to watch Hurts, if Milroe goes to the right situation, if he goes to third round, fourth round, sits behind a veteran guy, and is able to try to dig a name for himself there, he might be able to refine his tools that he has. But I've seen people suggest that he could go first round to a team like the Steelers. Which is the big thing, is the Steelers are going to take Jalen Milroe, but they don't have a second round pick, so they would have to take him in either the first or third, but some people don't know whether he's going to fall to the third. It's a whole thing. So people are suggesting that the Steelers take him with the first round pick that they have. Again, he just needs to show me more with his arm as a prospect. I don't believe I sat down and watched Alabama's Pro Day. I watched, obviously, Miami's. I watched Colorado's Pro Day, or Showcase, whatever they wanted to call it. But I watched a few Penn State's I was going to watch, but then Abdul Carter wasn't going to showcase himself during the Pro Day because he was still injured. So there's a couple of them, more of the bigger names I was going to watch and see how they performed. I don't believe I was able to watch Alabama's. That definitely would have proven more of what Jalen Milroe could have done. and could have possibly raised his stock maybe to the third round. But realistically, with how limited he is in the passing game, and with how, and this isn't teachable, but with the lack of a clutch factor that Jalen had, or Hurts had, coming into the what draft? Coming into the 2020 draft, it definitely helped build his character even, which we don't know what Milroe's like. We don't know anything about this, and it's just taking a guess on a very raw athlete. Could I see somebody trading up with the Eagles at number 32 and trying to take a Jackson Dart or Jalen Milroe? Yes, I could see that happen. What exactly happened to Lamar Jackson during the 2018 draft? Ravens traded up with the Eagles at pick number 32, and they took their quarterback of the future. But they were able to sit him behind a veteran quarterback. I could see something like that happen. Maybe the Steelers do that if they want to take a quarterback. But at the end of the day, I can't see Jalen Milroe going as high as some people have started to tout him over the past few days, like a Mel Kiper. Mel Kiper's out of his head, all right? To think that either one of these quarterbacks, and we'll start to talk about Jackson Dart here in a second, but especially Jalen Milroe, who needs to prove himself even more and needs to sit behind a veteran guy, in my opinion. Looking at Jackson Dart, he has a little bit more potential to come in and start immediately, but he is not first round like talent at all. I mean, looking at it, good arm. And he's slightly mobile too, so he's not just a pocket passer. He can move a little bit around the pocket. He can escape, extend the play, and fire, and almost put the ball exactly where he wants it. I forget how tall he is. Hold on, because that would be my next point. Height. He's 6'2", so he's decent size. He's not the biggest quarterback, but he's still a pretty good size there. He's mobile at 225 pounds. He's not like some skinny thing. He's not like a Bryce Young. So I could definitely see him going in the second round. Again, a lot of people have like the Steelers taking him in the first round if Shedeur and Cam don't fall, which obviously Cam at this point is locked in at number 1, since Tennessee canceled a lot of their other private workouts, and especially with the other top quarterback prospect, Shedeur Sanders. So it seems like Cam Ward's going number 1. Shedeur's going somewhere, and we'll cover where I think he goes in like 2 weeks when I do my my mock draft 3.0. But Jackson Dart, not first round talent. He's good, and he can be the future of someone's franchise, especially if he sits behind a veteran quarterback, which is why I'm saying the Rams should take him in round number 2. Tell Matthew Stafford, hey, these last few years are your years on this contract. We just need to bring in A, insurance, because you're getting older in case you get injured, and B, a guy to come in after you. And a lot of people will say, oh, that's wrong. You shouldn't put your franchise guy, Matthew Stafford, in that kind of position. And he doesn't have to like groom him or coach him up. He just needs to, Jackson Dart just needs to sit behind someone that's as talented, and as smart as a quarterback like a Matthew Stafford. That's seen a lot, played with a lot of people. At the end of the day, Jackson Dart, not that he reminds me of a Matthew Stafford, but if he was a little bit taller, if he was like 6'4", I could see him being more like a Matthew Stafford. But he definitely has a few different characteristics, is able to extend the play, escape the pocket, has a big arm, and is precise with it. But should he be a first-round pick? No. There are multiple other players that are more physically talented and better off starting day one than a Jackson Dart or a Jalen Milroe are. All right, let's see. Another smaller piece of news. The Eagles are expected to make a few moves on draft night, according to Adam Schefter. I mean, thinking about what these could be, definitely what I mentioned earlier, the Eagles trading down out of the first round and getting some capital for the next year. Wouldn't be a horrible idea, in my opinion. Eagles trading for a rotation guy, especially on the defensive line, I wouldn't hate, especially if they aren't as sold on a lot of these different defensive prospects or any of the prospects, especially within the first round, that they don't feel like they need to burn that kind of capital on a player like that. Looking at it, I could definitely see them trading down. The only way I could see them trading up is if there's a guy that they really want, a guy that's really jumped out to them, especially over these last 2 weeks as we get into the ending of pro days for many colleges and the ending of private workouts for many different teams. They feel like a guy is truly fit for this organization as a whole. They might trade up. I don't think they would trade up anywhere past 25. That might just be too much capital for them to give up at this time. Yes, they might have like 4 third-round picks next year, but at the end of the day, it's just not worth burning away possible future capital for a guy that, even if you're sold on, you still don't know how he's going to play out. And you could use that capital later down the line to trade for a proven guy. So overall, I do feel like if the Eagles are to move down, it would be, or if the Eagles were to move at all, it would be out of the first round for either a rotational guy and some capital in next year's draft or late this year's draft as well. But that's really the only move I could see them making out of 32. Rumors, especially after Colorado's Pro Day, have started to pop up that Travis Hunter prefers to play wide receiver because he only ran routes during his Pro Day. I think that might be a mistake, and here's why. Why Travis Hunter has been highly touted, especially up to this point, is because he's a unicorn. He's the only player in a long time, not saying ever, he's the only player in a long time which has played both offense and defense on a consistent basis and has been able to stay healthy. That's very important. If he only plays wide receiver, or if he only plays corner, he starts to devalue his, he starts to devalue himself. I mean, looking at it, there are a few other corners. Well, no, there's one other corner, in my opinion, in this draft, that being Will Johnson out of Michigan, that is better, especially at the fundamentals, than Travis Hunter is. There are maybe one other wide receiver that I would argue that have better fundamentals than Travis Hunter has. But if you put what Travis Hunter can do both on offense and defense, that starts to entice teams to think, okay, we have 2 holes that we need to fill. This player can cover both. Let's do that instead of burning more draft capital on multiple players. So I do feel like if he decides to go one over the other, he'll start to devalue how much he's actually worth, in my opinion. Because if he's able to stay at this high of a level of playing corner and wide receiver, not all the time, either if he wants to play more wide receiver, that's fine, but make sure there are quite a few packages that have him involved as a corner on the defense. And I feel like if you do that, he will probably continue his success at the next level. Will that mean it work? No. I'm not sure how much it would work if he did both at the same level. And if eventually he decides, after like maybe 2-3 years, hey, this is really starting to damage my body beyond repair, and I'm not seeing a silver lining to doing all this, then it might be time to only focus on one position over the other, which will then allow whatever team picks him. I do have my opinion right now, that being the Browns, but that allows whatever team that picks him to build up the other position that he doesn't feel like playing as much over the next couple of years. So I do feel like if Travis Hunter decides to play one or the other, he will completely devalue his worth, especially in the eyes of GMs, and how they're able to play with him and use him at different positions. All right. So next up will be the Trey Hendrickson situation, which continues to really get weirder like every day. With the Bengals still apparently looking for a first round pick for him, but also not willing to pay him more. They've essentially, and not even directly, according to Trey Hendrickson when he went on the Pat McAfee show, the communication between both sides have been fairly non existent whatsoever. And that's even with his own agent, that the Bengals really haven't been giving him the time of day, which is slightly concerning. And even after that, the Browns, I forget what her position is. It's definitely not general manager, but somebody in the Bengals, what did I say, Browns? The Bengals organization came out and said he should like the contract and sign it. And that's, I don't know what they think that they're trying to do here. I mean, this continues the theme of the Bengals organization alienating most of their stars and making them feel like the odd man out. I mean, we saw all this with Carson Palmer, like over 10 years ago, maybe around 20, maybe. Carson Palmer. Let's see. Yeah, we saw this around over 10 years ago where they alienated their star quarterback out of all positions. Then he threatened to retire. Then they traded him to the Raiders for a year. Then he got traded to the Cardinals, where he's most popularly brother, I can't speak today. He was more remembered as a Cardinal than he was ever a Bengal. So it does concern me that they are now starting to choose favorites. I mean, they just paid 2 wide receivers over $100 million, which I believe both of those deals have over $80 million guaranteed to each receiver. On top of that, they paid Joe Burrow like top quarterback money. And I don't entirely agree with the fact that they're going to continue to alienate a player. Although he's older, this could be his last contract, realistically. Well, big contract, especially with this team, especially with how they're treating him. And without getting into our next topic, but we're seeing other teams like the Raiders being willing to shell out cash to their bigger stars that they just brought in and able to keep them long term and push the money down the road. And it's clear to me that the Bengals don't entirely understand the situation that they're sitting in. They believe offense wins championships when, realistically, the saying goes, defense wins championships. And they don't really have anybody else on that defense anymore, especially with Sam Hubbard retiring this past offseason and Trey Hendrickson now holding out. Who do they have on defense? Jermaine Pratt, I mean, who also requested a trade as well, mind you, and that still hasn't happened yet. They have Oren Burks, which I love Oren Burks. He did such a good job with the Eagles, but he's not a star. So Bengals just keep backing themselves up into a corner, making themselves look worse, and making themselves not look like a good situation for free agents to go to, even if they're veteran free agents. So as a whole, the Bengals continue to flounder with this weird Trey Hendrickson situation. They keep asking for a first-round pick. In my opinion, at his age, he's probably worth at a low second-round pick, if not a high third-round pick, and maybe another sixth. But besides that, he's not really worth too much more than that. So let's see. I assume that this situation is probably going to figure itself out by the draft. If not, this could be a long, grueling summer for Bengals fans, especially when it comes to whether they're going to be a contender again or not. But we'll definitely cover that later down the line. Next up, we have a smaller thing. After a month of being on the Raiders, Geno Smith and the Raiders came to a 2-year $75 million extension with $66.5 million guaranteed. I remember last week I said that Josh Allen was trying to curb the inflation of the quarterback market. Unfortunately, Geno Smith and the Raiders completely blew that, and now we're back at inflation at its finest when it comes to how much a quarterback's getting paid. So I do feel like this is a solid deal. Things are starting to shape up for the Raiders. I'm not saying they're going to be contenders this year. I want to see how they play on the field before I make any claims as to such. Plus, my uncle would definitely be happy if they were contenders, so I'm not going to give him false hope. But as a whole, I do feel like this is a smart move. You're locking down a guy that you truly believe in, that what's-his-face, their head coach, Pete Carroll, truly believes in. And with their contracts, I believe, ending around the same time, it definitely allows for this era to rebuild and possibly even contend right now, get into the playoffs, maybe sneak in a wild card spot if you're lucky right now. But I would like to see not more moves. I would like to see who they pick up in the draft. I feel like they might get Ashton Jeanty. As much as I would like him to go to Chicago, I do feel like Ashton Jeanty goes to the Raiders. And I do feel like we will see the Raiders become more contenders, especially with a head coach like Pete Carroll, a quarterback like Geno Smith, and basically a general manager like a Tom Brady at this point. All right, so lastly, our last topic is the Eagles are hosting their private workouts, and they've started to announce a lot of the slate of who's going to be showing up and who's going to be working out there. Looking at it, you can see a theme of who they're most likely going to take at the first round. I'll let you guys pick it out before I even say anything. But I just want to say before we get into this that this is not all the players. This is only 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is only half of the players that are going to be at this pro day. They're allowed 30. They currently sit at 15. So I do feel like there are more to come, and it will either reinforce my idea of who they're going, or what position at the very least they're going to take in the first round, or it's going to completely dispel it. So looking at the first person they're taking, Trey Amos, cornerback out of Ole Miss. Solid pick. I watched a little bit of tape on him. He's good. He's not like the top corner prospect. He's first round quality, but he's not like the top guy. So hopefully he falls. That I wouldn't complain too much if we could pair a Quinyon Mitchell and a Trey Amos across from one another. T.J. Sanders, a defensive tackle. I forget what school he's out of, but definitely I haven't watched any tape on him. I might have to, depending on how well it goes, according to rumors. So let's see. T.J. Sanders, defensive tackle out of some university. Okay. Nick Scorton, edge out of Texas A&M, running mate with Shamar Stewart, another solid guy. I would like to see his numbers have been a little bit higher in production in college, but that Texas A&M defensive line was pretty ferocious, as you will see, because we might see one or two other players from Texas A&M on their defensive line in this group here. Jacob Parrish, corner out of Kansas State. I haven't seen anything on him. Where is he? There we go. Shamar Turner, defensive tackle out of Texas A&M. Again, Texas A&M, their defensive line was fairly ferocious. I wouldn't mind more depth at the defensive line position, as we are starting to lack that now. And that was one of our big pieces, especially winning the Super Bowl, was how many guys we could get in. So, wouldn't mind him in maybe like the third round, but wait and see. Dylan Fairchild, offensive guard out of Georgia. another Georgia boy. He's a big boy. He's 6'5", like 300-something pounds, offensive guard. Wouldn't mind having him on the team, especially trying to vie for that offensive guard spot. Let's see, Donovan Jackson, another offensive guard, this time out of Ohio State. He's probably going to go high in the second round, so the Eagles would have to take him with the first-round pick if they were interested. But I'm not entirely sold on him. I might have to go watch a little bit more film on him, but he's definitely solid. He's not the best offensive guard in this draft. Okay, this one I'm going to completely butcher, so I completely apologize. Oluwadomi, Owajo, something like that. Edge out of UCLA. I haven't watched him yet. We'll have to watch him as well. Try to get the pronunciation of his name actually correct, if he becomes the Eagle especially. But he seems to, at his raw stats right here, he seems to be able to produce. So that's all that matters to me. We have Charles Grant, offensive tackle out of William and Mary. He's fairly undersized. He's fairly scrawny. He would have to put on a little bit more muscle for the NFL, to play in the NFL. So I could definitely see him being a Stoutland University late-round pick developmental guy to be a backup. Or maybe to, if he becomes good enough, maybe even to replace Lane Johnson once Lane Johnson retires. But let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. Yeah, definitely seems like he has a lot of the athletic abilities to be able to play in the NFL. He just needs to put on some more muscle. We have Tyler Byron, edge out of Miami. Obviously, this Miami defense was fairly good early last season, and then they kind of start to flounder at the end. But would still be a solid pickup at the edge position. One that kind of surprised me, but it figures that the Eagles would do their due diligence here. Jaden Blue, running back out of Texas. We already signed A.J. Dillon. We have Will Shipley. I wouldn't hate if we brought on another guy like Jaden Blue and put him on our practice squad, but it's more of a wait-and-see kind of thing. The guy that I have personally, as of right now, the Eagles taking in the first round, Donovan Ezeraku, edge out of Boston College. He's really good. He's pro-level talent. He's late first round, early second round projected. I wouldn't hate this pickup by the Eagles, and it would continue to build the edge position that I believe so desperately needs a little bit more depth at the in the area. Maxwell Hairston, corner out of Kentucky. He's a little bit small, but he's a ball hawk. He's able to get to the ball, and he's able to he can lock down. He's better at man than he is zone. But yeah, would be a solid later round pickup for this Eagles squad. Elijah Roberts, defensive tackle out of SMU. Again, this theme of defensive line depth. Wouldn't hate if we got him later in like maybe the 4th or 5th round. We have a few 5th round picks this year anyway. So maybe quite a few of these guys, if they fall that far, we might be able to grab a few of them. And finally, the last person that we know of, Jalen Travis, offensive line out of Iowa State. He has played multiple positions over the offensive line, so that's why I couldn't really constrict him to guard or tackle or center. So Jalen Travis, offensive line. Again, depth at the offensive line, never a bad idea, especially when you're the Philadelphia Eagles. That is normally the position that you try to strike on. So I do believe that the Eagles will most likely take a edge rusher in the first round, followed by a corner in the second. If it's not a corner, then it's most likely going to be a defensive tackle of some kind. I do believe that a few of these guys might be there late in or in the 5th round, which we have 4 picks in right now. So I do feel like things are shaping up to find some replacements for guys that retired, guys that moved on. I wouldn't hate if we got a Donovan, the edge rusher out of Boston College. That would be a solid pickup. But overall, I still don't know who they're going to take. It's more of a wait and see, and that's if they stay in the first round, like we talked about earlier this episode. But realistically, that's all I have to talk about today. I was able to scrounge up more than I thought I was able to. So I do want to thank you guys for listening to this episode. Sorry again. Might take off next week. Let's see. I'll probably tweet out before the episode, and just to give me a little bit more time to prepare for the draft and mock draft 3.0. But until next time, and until you hear from me, this has been the Flying with the Flop podcast. And remember, go Birds.